there comes a moment when a man realizes the battle he's fighting isn't visible to anyone. No wounds, no noise, no applause, only silence. Because this war lives in the mind. It hides in the late-night scroll, in the gaze that lingers too long, in the urges no one talks about. And what it steals isn't just time. It steals your strength, your clarity, your discipline. This isn't about morality. It's about power. Because the strongest men know what you give your attention to owns you. And the moment you break, not even the world will notice. But you will. Watch this video till the end. Like and subscribe. Your future self will thank you for it. You don't have to tell anyone. I already know. There are moments late at night when the world goes quiet, when something inside you starts to stir, a kind of unrest, a heaviness in your chest that no one else sees. You smile, you laugh, you show up, but underneath, there's a war going on. It's not loud, it's not bloody, but it's there. A battle between who you are and who you pretend to be, between the parts of you try to hide and the parts you wish were stronger, between the man you are when no one's watching and the one you wish you could be when everyone is. This war isn't about enemies. It's not out there. It's not about proving something to the world. It's about wrestling with yourself, that voice in your head that won't shut up, the impulses that pull you toward what you said you'd never do again, the shame that creeps in after the damage is done, the guilt that whispers, you'll never change. That's the real fight. And maybe no one taught you how to defend yourself. Maybe no one pulled you aside and said, hey, what's your feeling? That chaos inside? That's not weakness. That's the battlefield. So you walk around thinking you're broken, like you're the only one losing, like everyone else has it figured out. But they don't. They're just better at hiding the war. Here's the truth. No one told you. Every man carries a battlefield within him, but only a few have the guts to face it. And even fewer know what the hell they're doing when they do. See, most fall not because they're soft, not because they don't care, but because they're fighting blind, reacting to urges, not understanding them, drowning in anger, but never asking where it's coming from, running from discomfort, instead of learning how to sit in it. No one ever gave you a map. No one showed you how to fight your shadow. So you learned to fake it, to numb it, to avoid it. But you can't outrun what's inside of you. It follows, everywhere. So you have a choice. Not to erase the war, that's impossible, but to step into it with your eyes open. To stop blaming the world. To stop waiting for someone else to fix you. You are responsible now. Not for what happened, not for how you were raised, not for the pain you inherited, but for what you do with it. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to stop hiding. That's how the shift begins. Not with control, not with strength, but with honesty. Look in the mirror, and not just to fix your hair or your posture. Look deeper. Ask yourself who's in there, and what he's really running from. Because the moment you name the enemy, the battle changes. This war you're in, you're not alone, but it's still yours to fight. No one else can win it for you. And if you ever needed permission, here it is. You don't have to be to stand tall. You just have to stop retreating. Face yourself, because the man you become starts with the war you're finally willing to fight. You think it's about the desire, the heat, the rush. But if you slow it down, if you really stop and look at it, you'll realize something that might scare you a little. It's not about pleasure. It never was. That craving, that pull you feel toward the screen, the image, the fantasy. It's not because you're weak. It's because something inside you is trying to get away. From the silence, from the ache, from the parts of you you've never been allowed to feel. Lust feels like hunger, but it's really a scream. It shows up in the loneliest hours, when no one texts back, when life feels dull and pointless, when you're sitting with your own thoughts and you can't stand them, That's when it hits. Not because you need release, but because you need relief. From what though? Maybe it's the fear that you'll never be enough. Maybe it's the emptiness that's been building for years. Maybe it's the shame you buried so deep that it only surfaces when no one else is around. You don't chase Bodhies, you chase escape. And I know that's hard to admit, because it's easier to say you just have a high drive, that it's natural, that it doesn't hurt anyone. But deep down, you know when it crosses the line, when it becomes something you need just to feel okay. That's not desire, that's survival. And here's the truth, most people won't tell you. Lust isn't the problem, it's the signal. It's your mind trying to sedate the soul, trying to drown the discomfort in dopamine, trying to forget, even just for a minute, that life feels too heavy, and you don't know where to place the weight. But if you can stop running, if you can pause before giving in, you might notice what's actually going on inside. You're not craving skin, you're craving connection. You're not chasing a body, you're chasing peace. Not just with others, but with yourself. Because the hardest part isn't resisting the urge, it's facing the pain underneath it. It's asking yourself what you've been running from, and why you keep thinking something out there is going to fix what's broken in here. But when you start seeing lust for what it is, not your master, not your identity, just a signal, that's when things begin to change. Not overnight, not without struggle, but slowly, you begin to reclaim your power. And maybe for the first time, you realize you don't need another hit. You need healing. And that only comes when you stop trying to escape and start trying to understand. You think you're just passing time. You open your screen, scroll a little, click, swipe, back out, scroll again. It feels harmless, maybe even relaxing. But slowly, without you realizing, something deeper is happening. It's not just watching, it's becoming. Every image, every scene you watch, every second you spend locked into a world that doesn't reflect your reality, it's reshaping you. Not just your thoughts, your attention, your habits, your desires, your identity. And you don't even notice the shift, not at first, but one day, you wake up and realize you can't focus like you used to. You can't sit in silence without feeling the itch to check your phone. You feel numb around real people, bored by real conversations, uncomfortable with genuine intimacy. And the worst part, you don't remember when it started. Because it didn't happen overnight. It was a slow leak, a drip of dopamine at a time, quietly rewiring what your brain craves and what your heart needs. Lust isn't just in the explicit, it's in the algorithm, in the way it studies what holds your attention and feeds it back to you, over and over again, until it becomes part of how you see the world and yourself. It teaches you to want things that don't last, to chase stimulation instead of meaning, to seek novelty over depth. And that has a cost. The more you watch, the harder it gets to show up fully in your own life. The more you consume, the less you create. The more you escape into fantasy, the more disconnected you become from who you really are and what you actually want. You weren't meant to live like this, wired, distracted, trapped in a loop of artificial highs and empty come-downs. You weren't built to survive on pixels and performance. You were built to connect, to build, to grow. But the mind doesn't know the difference. It learns from repetition, from what you feed it. So ask yourself honestly, what have you been feeding yours? Because you can't keep watching chaos and expect to feel peace. You can't train your brain to crave quick hits and expect to find depth in your relationships. You can't drown in endless content and still know what it feels like to be present. This isn't about guilt. It's about awareness. It's about seeing that what you let into your mind doesn't stay as entertainment. It becomes your lens, your patterns, your future. But the moment you recognize that, the moment you stop pretending it's just a habit and start seeing it for what it is, programming, that's the moment you take your power back. Because you're not just what you watch, you're what you repeat. And if you want to become something more, it starts with changing what you let shape you. You tell yourself you've got it handled. It's not a problem. You could stop any time. You just don't want to. You're in control, right? But deep down, there's a voice, quiet but persistent, that knows you're lying to yourself. Because if you really had control, why do you keep coming back to the same thing that leaves you feeling empty? Why do you keep telling yourself, just one more time, then hate yourself after it's done? Why do you feel calm only until the urge returns, and then everything else fades until you feed it? This is the trap no one talks about. The illusion that you're steering the wheel, when the truth is, you're being driven by something deeper. It doesn't scream, it whispers, tells you you're fine, that this doesn't define you, that other people have it worse, that you've still got your life together. But look closely. Look at what it's costing you. The time you waste, the energy you lose, the guilt you carry when no one's looking, the shame that sits in your chest like a weight you can't name. And it's not just about the behavior, it's about the cycle, the secrecy, the lies you tell others, and the lies you tell yourself. That's the real prison. Not the act, but the hiding, the pretending. You keep thinking you're managing it, but it's managing you, your moods, your confidence, your ability to show up fully in your own life. That's what no one tells you about control. It doesn't break all at once. It fades slowly. By the time you realize it's gone, you've already adapted to living without it. And the scariest part? You're still functioning, still showing up to work, still laughing with friends, still going through the motions of a life you're not fully living. That's what keeps you stuck. You don't hit rock bottom, you sink silently, and you call it balance. But here's what you need to understand. This fire you're playing with, it doesn't care about your excuses. It doesn't care how smart you are, how much potential you have, how good your intentions are. If you keep feeding it, it will keep taking until there's nothing left but regret. So no, you're not in control. Not until you stop pretending. Not until you look the addiction, the pattern, the escape dead in the face and admit, this thing owns me more than I want to admit. That's when the shift begins. Not when you break free, but when you break open, when the mask drops, when you finally stop negotiating with something that has no interest in your freedom, because the lie that you're in control, that's what keeps you bound. The moment you let that go, that's when you can finally start fighting for your life back. You think it's harmless? A quick scroll? A private release? A few minutes of escape? But what you don't see, what you won't admit, is what you're giving up every time you do it. Because it's not just time you're wasting. It's strength, it's clarity, it's edge. And the trade happens in silence. See, every time you give in, something in you dims. Your focus slips. Your drive softens. Your hunger fades. And you don't even notice. You think it's just a moment of pleasure, just stimulation. But underneath it all, something deeper is being taken from you. Something you don't get back as easily as you gave it away. You were built with fire, with ambition that's supposed to tear through obstacles, with instincts that were designed to protect, to pursue, to build. But stimulation short-circuits all of that. It gives you the feeling of reward without the work, the sensation of connection without the cost. It tricks your brain into thinking you've conquered, when all you've done is retreat. And over time, it adds up. Not in a way that crashes your life overnight. That would be easier to face. No, it's more subtle than that. You just start feeling a little less hungry, a little less grounded, a little less like the man you know you were supposed to be. Your mornings get slower, your goals feel heavier, your words lose weight, your presence, the thing that once turned heads and commanded space, starts to feel invisible. Not because the world changed, but because you did. You traded your strength for a hit of relief, and maybe no one told you this before. So hear it now. Every time you escape into pleasure you didn't earn, you lose power. You dull the sharpness that separates boys from men. Because a man doesn't just chase what feels good, he builds what means something. And stimulation, it doesn't make you full, it makes you hollow. It pulls your energy away from the life you could be building and pours it into a cycle that leaves you more drained than you were before. That's why you feel tired after. That's why you feel small. Because deep down, your soul knows you're betraying your design. But that doesn't have to be your story. You're not broken. You're just distracted. And distraction is a slow kind of death. So look around. Look at your life. Look at the goals you keep putting off. The relationships you half show up for. The fire you once had but now struggle to find. And ask yourself, what did you give it up for? Because the man you were meant to be, the one with vision, discipline, intensity, he's not gone. He's just buried under 1,000 small moments of surrender. But he's still there, waiting for you to stop trading your strength and start reclaiming it. It hits you in quiet moments, when there's nothing left to do, when the room is still, when the noise fades and all that's left is the weight in your chest. You think it's a craving, a desire, a need for stimulation. But if you're honest, really honest, you'll see it for what it is. Loneliness. Not the kind that comes from being alone. You can be surrounded by people and still feel it. Still feel that hollow ache in your gut. That sense that something's missing and you don't even know what. Most men don't talk about it. You weren't taught how. You were taught to solve, to suppress, to move on. So when that ache shows up, you reach for what's easy. A fantasy, a fix. Something that gives you just enough feeling to forget how numb you've become. But the thing you keep running to, it's not satisfying. It's distracting. And that's the trap. You think you're feeding a desire, but you're actually feeding a wound. A wound that started a long time ago. Maybe when no one showed up for you. Maybe when you were told emotions were weakness. Maybe when you learned that connection came with conditions. And now, here you are, grown, capable, yet starved. Emotionally starving, but trying to feed that hunger with something that can't touch the soul. You scroll, you click, you numb, but afterward, you're still empty, still aching, still disconnected. What you're really craving is connection, with purpose, with values, with yourself. And the truth is, that kind of connection doesn't come in a screen. It doesn't come in a quick high or a shallow fantasy. It comes when you stop avoiding yourself. When you sit in the discomfort long enough to understand it. When you stop treating your emotions like a problem and start listening to what they're trying to say. You're not weak because you crave. You're human, and every craving carries a message. Yours is saying, I want more. I want meaning. I want to feel alive again. And you can, but not by feeding the surface. You've done that. You know how that ends. The shift happens when you stop looking for relief and start searching for truth. When you stop asking, how do I get rid of this feeling? And start asking, what is this feeling trying to tell me? Because underneath the craving is a man who's tired of pretending he doesn't feel, tired of settling for less than connection, tired of feeding hunger with fantasy. That man, he's ready to come alive. But only if you're willing to face what's really missing and finally start giving yourself what you actually need. You keep waiting for the switch to flip, for the day you finally wake up and feel unshakable, disciplined, clear, unstoppable. But that day doesn't come, and the more you wait for it, the further it feels. So you tell yourself you'll start tomorrow, that next time you'll be stronger, but deep down, you don't trust yourself anymore, because you've said that before, and broken that promise more times than you can count. You're not lazy, you're not weak, you're just tired. Tired of chasing a version of yourself that feels miles away. Tired of failing before you even begin. Because you've made discipline this massive thing. This image of perfection, no slip-ups, no hesitation, no struggle. But that's not how it works. That's not how you rebuild. Discipline doesn't come in a flood. It comes in a drip, one decision at a time. That moment when your mind says, just give in, it's easier, and you pause. Even if it's just for a second, you pause. That's the beginning of strength. It's not about quitting everything all at once. It's about choosing better once, then doing it again. Not to impress anyone, not to prove anything, but because you're done being a slave to your impulses. You don't need a perfect plan. You need a reason, a real one, something that burns a little when you think about it. Maybe it's the man you're sick of being. Maybe it's the future you don't want to repeat. Whatever it is, hold it. Because every time you say no to the easy way out, you're not just resisting, you're remembering who you are. Who you were before the numbing, before the excuses, before you lost trust in your own word. And yeah, it's not glamorous. There are no big fireworks when you make that one better choice. No applause, just silence. But in that silence, you're building quiet power. The kind that no one sees, but everyone eventually feels. The kind that doesn't need to prove itself because it's rooted, grounded, real. That's what rebuilding looks like. Not perfect days, just honest ones. So stop waiting for motivation. Stop chasing the version of you that never falls. And start becoming the one who rises slowly, consistently, even through failure. Because your strength, it's not gone. It's just buried under 1,000 small decisions you gave away. But today, you get to make one back, and that's enough. That's how it starts. You've felt the pull, that intense, almost uncontrollable energy inside you. It comes fast, loud, powerful. It feels like it owns you. But what if I told you that it doesn't? That the same force that drags you into distraction, that same urge you've been trying to suppress or escape, could be the very thing that propels you into purpose? You've seen how lust takes your time, your attention, your fire, but only because you've been handing it over. Not because the energy is wrong, but because it's been misused. Lust is energy, raw, charged, primal energy. It doesn't care how you use it, only that you do, and when you don't direct it, it finds its own path. Usually one that leaves you feeling weaker after the high fades. But what if you stopped fearing it, stopped fighting it, and started using it? That intensity you feel, it's real, it's fuel, and fuel doesn't have to destroy, it can build, it can lift. The moment you feel that craving rise, you have a choice, to lose yourself in it, or to rise with it. To take that energy and aim it at something that matters, your craft, your mission, the version of you that's been buried under comfort and shame. You don't need less fire, you need direction. Because lust isn't the enemy, aimlessness is. That fire in your chest, that's life reminding you that you still want, you still desire, you still care. That's not weakness, that's power, waiting to be claimed. It's not about suppressing the urge. It's about pausing long enough to remember what it's really for. Because underneath it all, you don't just want pleasure. You want purpose. You want to feel alive again. To wake up with direction. To move like a man who's chosen himself. So the next time it hits, don't run. Don't shame it. Channel it. Let it sharpen your focus. Let it power your discipline. Let it drive you to build a life you no longer need to escape from. You've spent long enough letting that energy pull you down. Now, let it lift you. You don't post about it. You don't announce it. No one claps when you say no to the things that used to own you. And that silence, it can feel lonely, like no one sees the battles you're fighting, like all your effort is invisible. But hear me, that's where the real strength lives. In the unseen, in the quiet moments when you choose discipline over comfort, restraint over indulgence, truth over fantasy. Not for applause, not for recognition, but because you've had enough of losing in private. See, most men need the world to see their wins. They need validation, a pat on the back, a reason outside themselves to stay the course. But you're building something different. You're not chasing attention, you're chasing alignment. You're not here to look powerful, you're becoming it. You walk past the temptation, you turn off the noise, you delete the thing that keeps pulling you back, and you do it alone, in silence, because that's what the rebuild demands. Shortcuts, no praise, just you, and the decision to keep showing up. And yeah, it's hard. There's no audience, no scoreboard, just quiet victories that no one else will ever know about. But here's the truth, those silent wins, they echo louder than any public performance ever could. Because while others are busy flexing what they want to be, you're becoming what they can't even understand. You're stacking days, you're sharpening your focus, you're moving differently, not because you're better, but because you're finally clear. And clarity, it doesn't yell, it doesn't beg to be noticed. It just moves, with intention, with power, with discipline that no one can give you, and no one can take away. That's what makes you rare. You're the kind of man who doesn't need to say he's winning, because his life starts to speak for itself. The way you look people in the eye, the way you carry yourself when no one's watching, the way your presence shifts a room, not because it's loud, but because it's solid. You're not performing, you're becoming. So if you've ever felt unseen, good. It means you're doing it right. It means your power is real, not performative. Because the men who stay silent, they're the ones building foundations, deep enough to carry empires. And when they rise loud, not with noise, but with undeniable weight.